It was supposed to be the quiet of the night, yet several young people stood rigidly in front of a giant mirror. Exhausted, they dared not move an inch, not even to take a deep breath. The strange situation was caused by a group of mysterious creatures, intently watching them from the other side of the mirror. Every nightfall, they must appear before the mirror. The creatures observe and mimic every movement they make, and anyone who breaks the rules will be hunted relentlessly. No one wants to be a captive forever in the creatures' eyes. One day, a man decided to escape the eerie forest. He ran frantically through the forest, following the signs, but no matter how straight he ran, he found the same familiar sign again. Unknowingly, he had returned to the starting point, and despair washed over him like a flood. To make matters worse, as time passed, nightfall descended upon the terrifying forest once again. Desperate to escape the creature's pursuit, the man climbed a massive tree in front of him. But before he could climb very far, a crow suddenly swooped at him, followed by a swarm of crows filling the sky above the forest. Fear gripped him, and as he tried to flee, the branch in his hand snapped, sending him crashing to the ground. Staring at the knife scattered before him, his intense will to survive pushed him to climb forward despite the sharp pain. Just as he managed to grab the knife, a creature's roar echoed from nearby. Then, a mysterious force yanked him away, and he vanished into a hole in the forest. A few days later, seeking relief from the pressures of life, Mina decided to drive into the forest for some peace. But as she drove deeper into the mountains, she didn't notice the missing person posters stuck to the sign at the entrance. Soon after entering the mountains, her phone and radio lost signal, and even her car mysteriously broke down. To escape the forest, Mina took her parrot and wandered, hoping to find someone who could help. No matter how much she shouted, the forest remained eerily silent, offering no response. Just as she was about to return to her car, she realized it had disappeared without a trace. As the daylight faded, the forest grew increasingly bizarre, and Mina stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Fortunately, an elderly figure suddenly flashed behind her, and Mina quickly gave chase. But before long, the old man disappeared into the jungle, leaving only a strange building in front of Mina.
If you care for your life, you're going to have to run. 5, 4, 3, 2.
After seeking refuge in a shelter, Madeline introduced Mina to two others and quickly led her to stand before the mirror. Mina was confused by their behavior, but Madeline explained that the creatures were called Watchers. They would arrive at the cabin after sunset and observe their movements until sunrise. When they would leave, soon strange sounds echoed outside. Those were the Watchers clapping for Mina's arrival. After spending the night, Mina, ignoring the others' warnings, boldly ran into the forest. But not long after Mina left, an eerie little girl appeared nearby, scolding her relentlessly. Terrified by this horrifying sight, Mina turned and ran. After what felt like an eternity, she finally saw an open space ahead. Excited, she ran toward it, only for a sudden chill to sweep over her. In front of her lay an endless range of mountains, with no way out. At that moment, Madeline appeared behind her, explaining that everyone who had tried to escape had failed. With no hope of escape, Mina could only follow Madeline back to the cabin. Madeline said the forest landmarks formed a perfect circle, and as long as they stayed within the circle, they could return to the cabin before dusk. If they stepped outside this range, they would be lost in the forest, hunted by the creatures. As dusk approached, everyone stood before the mirror again, with Kira even dancing to entertain the creatures. The reality TV show playing on the screen struck Mina as deeply ironic. They were, after all, just another form of entertainment for the creatures. While Mina was out foraging with Kiara, she learned that Kiara's husband had gone out a few days ago to ask for help, and hadn't returned since. During their conversation, they unexpectedly came across a cave, where all the Watchers would hide during the day. Back at the cabin, Madeline and the others once again warned Mina about the crucial rules she had to follow.
Do not turn your back to the mirror. Do not open the door after dark. Do not go near the burrows. Always stay in the light.
Only by strictly adhering to these rules could they survive in the cabin surrounded by monsters. The past few days had left Mina utterly exhausted, and she slowly began to accept these strange rules. Until one day, when she and Daniel went out for food, Daniel's constant complaints about Madeline sparked an idea in her mind. She started to echo Daniel's complaints about Madeline, even expressing that she too didn't believe Madeline's words. They had never seen the true faces of the Watchers, and she kept tempting Daniel to investigate the cave where the Watchers hid. Curious, Daniel agreed to Mina's suggestion, and they made their way straight to the cave. Staring at the dark, deep cave before them, Mina didn't feel fear, but rather a sense of excitement. They tied a rope to a nearby tree, and Daniel slowly dragged Mina down into the cave by pulling the rope. After a long descent, Mina finally reached the bottom of the dark cave. Here, she not only found an old camera, but also an old bicycle. As she slowly brought the bicycle up, Mina suddenly heard a strange noise behind her. She hurriedly turned around, only to find a pale hand slowly reaching toward her from the darkness. Luckily, the sunlight's burning touch made the creature retreat, and Daniel quickly dropped the rope, allowing Mina to escape. After bringing the collected items back to the cabin, they were met with Madeline's furious questioning, but Mina ignored it completely. Daniel set up the camera with the cabin's TV, creating a makeshift surveillance monitor. By placing the camera outside, perhaps they could finally see the true faces of the Watchers when they arrived. But strangely, the Watchers, who always arrived on time every night, hadn't been seen at all by late evening today. Just as they were beginning to wonder, a pair of pale legs suddenly appeared on the TV, followed by a loud sound outside the door. Before anyone could react, Ciara suddenly stood up and walked toward the door, and the sound of her husband's cries for help followed. Seeing this, Madeline rushed to block the door, stating that it was impossible for anyone to survive in the forest at this hour. Moreover, her husband had gone missing in the forest a week ago, so it was impossible for him to return at this time. However, Ciara firmly believed that her husband might not have died, but had simply failed to get help and returned here. Recalling Mina's strange behavior earlier that day, Madeline angrily questioned her about where she had gotten the items. Upon learning that they had violated the rules and entered the cave, Madeline was filled with rage and disbelief. It was clear that it was because they had broken the rules that the creatures had attacked. At this point, Ciara could no longer tolerate the arguing and immediately prepared to open the door to rescue her husband. But Madeline stopped her once more, insisting that she ask her husband something only the two of them would know to verify his identity. To clear everyone's doubts, Ciara asked her husband a question only the two of them knew, but as time passed, her husband didn't respond at all, only continuously coaxing Ciara with a pitiful tone to open the door. This made Ciara realize something was wrong, and she angrily demanded that her husband pick up the camera and show his face to prove it was really him. As he leaned in front of the camera, a force suddenly pulled him away, and their actions completely enraged the creatures. They hurriedly stood in front of the mirror, trying to calm the enraged creatures with their actions. But the Watchers didn't stop their attack. They relentlessly smashed against the glass in front of them. As the mirror was about to break, a wave of panic gripped them, and the intense fear made it hard for them to breathe. Just as the mirror was about to break, the creatures suddenly stopped. Having narrowly escaped disaster, Madeline angrily scolded Mina and Daniel, throwing the items they had brought back into the cave. To avoid further rule-breaking, Mina could only mark her path while collecting food in the forest, looking for a way out. This event created a huge rift between Daniel and Madeline, and they fought daily. One day, while Mina and Ciara were chatting in the forest, they suddenly heard Madeline scream in the distance. The two rushed over, only to find Daniel had tied up Madeline and declared it was time for them to take control of the rules. Before they could react, Daniel ran towards the cabin at full speed. Seeing this, Mina quickly rushed to untie Madeline, and the two of them wasted no time running towards the cabin. But the door had already been locked by Daniel, and no matter how much they begged, he remained unmoved. By now, the night had completely enveloped the forest, and the monsters were about to appear. Madeline had no choice but to drag Mina into the woods, where they hid in a decaying hollow log. They hoped the rotten smell would mask their scent and help them evade the monsters' pursuit. Meanwhile, Daniel stood with Ciara in front of the mirror, paying no attention to the fate of the two outside. As Mina anxiously stared at the forest in front of them, the monsters suddenly appeared overhead. Luckily, the monsters didn't notice them directly below, and they held their breath, daring not to make a sound. The terrifying sight before them froze Mina's blood, and all they could do was huddle together, praying to escape unscathed. To make matters worse, as the monsters slowly moved towards the cabin, Daniel suddenly shouted that Mina and the others weren't inside. In an instant, all the monsters scattered, searching everywhere for their trail. Seeing this, the two hurried to the cabin door and knocked for refuge, but Daniel refused to let them in. As danger crept closer, Mina pleaded desperately, and only then did Daniel open the door to let them in. As soon as they entered the cabin, Madeline angrily confronted Daniel, but Mina suddenly heard the sounds of the monsters. The four of them rushed to stand in front of the mirror. To prevent this from happening again, Madeline revealed the hidden truth. She had come to the forest willingly, with the purpose of studying the Watchers in the woods. During a search for food, she discovered Watchers that had transformed into her own likeness. These strange creatures were called fairies in ancient texts. They continuously studied humans and then transformed into their likenesses. And the group of them were nothing more than their captured playthings. The Watchers would never let them leave. Meanwhile, there was a noise at the door again, with the monsters mimicking their voices, trying to break into the cabin. The four of them hurriedly shoved a table against the door, but it was clear that the flimsy table wouldn't hold them off for long. At that moment, Ciara unexpectedly discovered a hidden panel on the floor, revealing a tunnel leading to an unknown destination. As the noise at the door grew louder, they had no time to think and grit their teeth as they crawled into the tunnel. Fortunately, just as they successfully entered the tunnel, the monsters finally broke through the glass and door. When they descended into the underground chamber, they found it seemed like someone had once lived there. The walls were lined with research on the Watchers, and there was enough stored food to last for years. Mina accidentally discovered an old computer, and the group thought they could use it to send out a distress signal. But the computer could no longer receive any signals. Inside, it only contained hundreds of video logs. In these video logs, they discovered something truly chilling. A professor named Martin had specifically come to the forest to study the mysterious Watchers. At first, the research seemed perfectly normal, but soon he noticed the monsters began to mimic his own appearance. As time passed, he grew dissatisfied with simply observing the Watchers through a screen. In order to gather more research data, he began luring humans from nearby towns and villages to act as bait. By sacrificing these people's lives to the Watchers, he hoped to learn more about their behavior. As Martin became more obsessed with his research, he took advantage of one Watcher being alone and captured a Watcher's offspring. This cruel and disgusting truth filled them with immense fear and regret. And in the final video, they unexpectedly discovered a way to leave the forest. At the landmark number 134 by the river, Martin had hidden a small boat. As long as they followed the direction the birds flew, they could escape the forest. The professor realized the gravity of his actions and decided to end his life with the monsters, pleading for those who came after to destroy all the research. Upon hearing that they could leave, the group was filled with excitement, and Kira and Daniel even began to dance. After a sleepless night, they returned to the surface, only to find that the room had already been completely destroyed by the Watchers. But they paid no attention to this, and immediately ran into the forest. Thanks to the markings Mina had made earlier, they quickly found landmark 134. Mina quickly released her parrot, and they followed it, running without stopping for a second. But things took a turn for the worse, as the sky darkened, and a heavy rain began to fall. The Watchers also awoke from their burrows and began to chase them, leaving Mina and the others with no choice but to run for their lives. Fortunately, not long after, they discovered the small boat Martin had mentioned. As they were about to untie the boat, Ciara suddenly realized Daniel was missing. Turning to search, she saw Daniel dragging someone toward them. Someone who turned out to be her husband, missing for days. Realizing something was wrong, Kiraya shouted to stop him, but it was too late. As the monsters began to rise, Daniel became a sacrifice to them. Seeing this, the two hurriedly got onto the small boat and paddled toward the center of the lake, while the forest began to fill with the Watchers. Luckily, the Watchers couldn't leave the forest. They could only roar angrily in frustration. In the end, the three of them managed to escape the forest and boarded a bus back to the city. To finally put the experience behind her and fulfill Martin's last request, Mina went to Martin's office to destroy the files. In the files, she discovered that the children of humans and Watchers were not only skilled at shapeshifting, but could even take on the appearance of the deceased. Among the stack of photos on the desk, Mina found something even more terrifying. She hurried to Ciara's house and handed her the stack of photos. Madeline turned out to be Professor Martin's wife, which left Claire deeply confused. Madeline had never mentioned this to anyone, but Mina's words sent a chill down her spine.
The woman in the photos, she died in 2001 from lung cancer.
They had actually released a Watcher from the forest and brought it into the city. As a car slowly drove into the yard, the two held their breath, anxiously waiting for Madeline to arrive. But as the familiar figure stepped out of the car, Mina suddenly realized she had walked straight into a trap. The Ciara before her was the true Madeline, the Watcher that had been released. Mina urgently shouted for Kira to run, but Kira was quickly knocked down by Madeline, who had already reached her from behind. Mina didn't get far either, as Madeline knocked her to the ground. It angrily declared that they were once like gods, but humanity had locked them away in the underground world forever. Only it could walk in the sun, which had caused it to be ostracized and bullied by its kind since birth. It had hoped that the professor's arrival would change its fate, but instead he had tried to shoot it at the last moment. The betrayal by the professor had filled it with hatred towards the humans around it. It was determined to kill Mina and take her identity to infiltrate human society. As Mina was almost suffocating, she suddenly remembered the files in the professor's office. Madeline's uniqueness stemmed from the fact that she was a hybrid of human and Watcher, with half of her bloodline being human. She had many companions scattered across the world, and once she found them, she would no longer be alone. As Mina continued to plead, Madeline grew a pair of wings and eventually gave up on harming Mina. For Mina, the past experiences felt like a strange and bizarre dream, and she gradually reconciled with her family. Madeline continued to search for companions among the crowd, often watching Mina with different faces. Martin's obsessive pursuit of knowledge, sacrificing innocent lives for science, ultimately turned him into a prisoner of his desires. Madeline, having been ostracized, developed hatred, and nearly became the embodiment of destruction. In an era when fairies and humans coexisted, the fairies were once protectors and friends of humanity, but their overwhelming power caused fear in humanity, leading to them being sealed away underground, out of sight. This tragedy was not a conflict between species, but the result of misunderstanding and intolerance between them. The true horror of the forest was not the monster's claws, but humanity's greed and indifference.